All right, given that the cosine of some angle t is negative 3/4, we should have enough information to figure out the cosine of negative t and the secant of negative t. Okay, well the second half of this question is going to be easy. The secant is just the reciprocal of cosine, and these two are talking about the same angle. So like if this was negative 1/5, the reciprocal would be negative 5. If this is negative 3/2, the reciprocal would be negative 2/3, etc. So I'm not worried about this one at all. But this one requires us to try to think of this in a little bit different way. Okay, so first off, let me sketch a picture here. Okay, so it would help if I knew what this angle T was, because it would help me visualize it a little bit. And there are some things that you can do that we haven't learned yet this early in the year. But let's just say I just tried to sketch this. Well, cosine relates to the x values on the unit circle, and this is negative. So if I'm trying to sketch in T can't look like this, because this has a positive x value, and cosine relates to the x value on the unit circle, and it's negative. So I'm going to sketch T to maybe look like this. That definitely has a negative x, and so a negative cosine. We'll just pretend like this is unit circle here. So that is our x value. Okay, so with this, I can now say, well, wait, if I had to turn this much to get that x value, what would happen if I turn the same amount instead of counterclockwise but clockwise? Because that's what we do with negative angles. So for negative t, I'm going to say, well, here's how much I turned for t. So let me turn that much again for t in the opposite direction, starting from standard position. This is what negative t looks like. Well, now that I have this sketched out, these have the same x value, therefore they have the same cosine value. So in this instance, whether you're talking about the cosine of t or the cosine of negative t, we end up with the same thing. And like I said, now that these are talking about the same angle, secant is just the reciprocal of cosine, so flip over your fraction. I'll also add in here, even though this is not something you need quite yet, within just a couple weeks you'll be asked to memorize some identities, and one of them is that the even and odd identities, and cosine is an even identity, which means whether you plug in a positive t or a negative t, those values would be equal. So once you memorize that identity, again very shortly, less than 2 weeks for sure, then you could use that identity here and not have to try to reason through it in the way I did for this video.